I smelled her before I saw her. His ex. The perfume like sugared gasoline soaking our sheets at 2 a.m. My husband said he was working late, but her lipstick was working overtime on his neck. What I did next wasn't loud. It was surgical. It was the kind of revenge that makes a lawyer breathe faster. If you want the full story, the weekends, the cabin, the glass smile lies, and how I turned his double life into my clean exit, like this video, subscribe, and buckle your seatbelt. Because the craziest thing isn't that he slept with his ex every weekend, it's where I caught them, and who was waiting with me in the dark. I don't remember sitting up. I remember the smell, candy sweet with a fingerprint of smoke. I remember the bed rolling under me like a slow wave. The clock threw a blue 2:11 against the wall. His side was still warm, dented the way a body is when it leaves in a hurry. Downstairs, our refrigerator hummed like it was pretending not to listen. I touched the collar of his laundry shirt in the hamper. Not sweat, not cologne. The perfume was teenage and expensive, like an apology in a department store. I pressed my nose to the cloth once, twice. The third time, I tasted lipstick, waxy, synthetic, stubborn. He'd texted at midnight, "Client meltdown, don't wait up." I didn't wait up. I waited awake. People ask later, how did you know? The truth is that knowing doesn't click like a switch. It grows teeth. It gnaws. The knowing feels like trying to hold your breath at the surface. You could breathe any time, but you don't, because you're proving something to no one. 3 weekends earlier, he'd started leaving on Fridays with a duffel bag and a new joke. "Golf's my meditation, babe." I don't play golf. He doesn't either. But he suddenly knew all about tee times and greens fees. He'd come home with grass stains that looked like he'd rolled in envy and sunburns that stopped at his shirt collar like a lie. The first Friday, I believed him. The second, I Googled the course, clothes for renovation. The third, I followed him. I didn't plan it like a spy. I planned it like a wife whose hands were shaking. I put on the gray hoodie with the soft inside and the quiet zipper. I left my wedding ring in the ceramic dish where we dropped our keys. On the way out, I ate a single grape because it felt like a decision. He drove north because apparently betrayal prefers pine trees. Traffic was a throat clearing. The freeway lifted us out of the city, glass to brick, brick to field, field to forest. I stayed back 3 car lengths in one lane, where love goes to whisper its last arguments. At mile marker 112, he took the exit with the little picture of a crooked river. He turned right at the bait shop, left at the antique barn that has sold the same cracked rocking horse since 1987. He pulled into a gravel lot beside a cabin with red shutters and a porch swing that moved like it was haunted. He killed the engine and sat still, punishing the steering wheel with his thumb. I counted to 60 the way you do in the dentist chair. On 87, she stepped out of the cabin. His ex-wife, the one with the noun for a name and the hair like a warning. We'd seen her once across a parking lot, and her glance fell on me the way you drop a paper cup, light, disposable, loud enough to be rude. Seeing her again made my tongue go glassy. She wore a robe that believed it was a gown. She didn't tie it all the way up. She didn't need to. He got out of the car smiling the way men smile in brochures for bad decisions. They kissed like they were biting the same cherry. I didn't cry. Crying is too tender for certain kinds of truth. I felt something straighten inside me, like someone pulled a string. Flashback. The day we got married, he forgot his vows. He went pale and grinned and pulled the crumbled index card from his pocket like a magician, performing sadness. Everyone laughed. I laughed. It felt like a quirk, like charm. On the drive to the airport for our honeymoon, he said, "You know, I'm not great with words, but I'm good with follow-through." Follow-through. I bite the word now. It tastes like tin. Back in the present, I didn't go up to the porch. The porch would be drama. The porch would be a scene, and scenes end. I wanted something that didn't end. Consequence. So
I went home. I didn't tell him, not yet. I let the truth do stretches. I wanted it limber before the run. I made coffee at 6 in the morning and stirred in cream until it became a convincing sky. He came in at 6:22 with a fresh lie. His hair smelled like rich teenagers. He kissed my cheek and I learned how to keep my skin still. "How was your night?" I asked. He started his script. The words slid out, confident as a con man. "You would not believe this client." I did believe him, but I believed my eyes more. "Poor thing," I said. I considered using his name, but it tasted complicated. We went through our Saturday rituals. He fixed the squeaky hinge on the basement door like a man correcting punctuation. I watered plants that were better liars than both of us. We did the crossword together, and he got ataraxia on the first try. Tranquility. I wrote it in with a shaking hand. That night, in bed, he reached for me with both hands open, like apology and appetite were the same shape. And I let him. I wanted to measure the betrayal from the inside. I wanted, morbidly, to know how the body holds two truths at once.
Here's a secret. Revenge, when it's real, doesn't look like sharp red neon. It looks like spreadsheets. It looks like logins. It looks like reading your marriage contract in a quiet voice and writing down words that used to be theoretical. Fidelity, separation, breach. Monday, I made an appointment with a lawyer whose voice could shave glass. I told her everything in fewer words than I've used on a pizza order. She looked at me like I was a problem she enjoyed having. "We proceed quietly," she said. "You collect proof. You don't confront until you can win twice." What does winning twice mean? Getting out clean and leaving him with what he earned. We opened folders with names that made my stomach flip. Cabin, expenditures, witnesses. I learned how to download bank statements without leaving fingerprints. I learned that cheaters are excellent at patterns and terrible at hiding them. Every Friday, a charge at a gas station by mile marker 110. Every Saturday, a purchase from River's Edge Grocery, where lipstick is surely tax deductible. By Wednesday, my phone's photo library looked like a detective's scrapbook. Receipts, timestamps, the cottage rental website with that red porch swing on the homepage. I took a picture of my face, too. No makeup, eyes like unlit windows, because I wanted one honest thing among the evidence. Flashback. The first time I met his ex, we were engaged and he was eager, breathless, to prove there was no drama. "She's cool with everything now," he said, smoothing his tie, smoothing history. At the party, his ex laughed too loud at a joke that was about me, but not about me. And while I poured white wine, I learned the geography of her face. The expensive cheekbones, the lips like a dare, the little scar above her eyebrow like a comma. She caught me looking. "He's a terrible cook," she said, conspiratorially, like we were sisters. "But he makes up for it." "Does he?" I said, and the words turned to ice as they left my mouth. 2 weeks passed. He was diligent with his lies. He liked them neat. I was diligent with my plans. I liked them silent. The lawyer's assistant knew a private investigator who didn't look like the movies. She looked like a kindergarten teacher who could ruin your week. She showed me pictures taken at angles I didn't know existed, of my husband and his ex standing by the crooked river with mugs of something steaming, smiling like a toothpaste ad for bad decisions. "We can stop here," she said kindly, "or we can go further." "Further," I said, and my voice didn't flinch. "Then we're going to let him invite himself to his own downfall," she said. "How?" "People like him throw parties without calling them parties." The invitation arrived disguised as his promotion dinner. He sent a calendar invite with confetti emojis. "It's small, babe, just a few partners and their wives. Let's celebrate." The venue was a private room at a restaurant downtown where the lighting is always flattering and the waiters say your name like they're promising to keep it safe. The lawyer helped me dress, literally. In her office, she opened a garment bag and pulled out a black dress
with the neckline that understood geometry. She said, "This one says, I am both the storm and the insurance payout." I laughed for the first time in 3 weeks. You keep that line? I keep everything. I wore the dress and the perfume he bought me 2 anniversaries ago, back when anniversaries were honest. It smells like clean paper and a well-kept secret. On the way to the dinner, he squeezed my thigh at a stoplight. "We made it," he said. "We did," I said, and watched the red light paint his jaw. The restaurant's private room had walls the color of champagne that has been thinking about you all day. The partners were there with their wives, all of them blinking like owls in just dark. Laughter like shiny pennies, napkins folded into impossible animals. And there, across the room, was his ex-wife. On the arm of the senior partner, the one who collects vintage mistakes like cigars. Her presence joined the room like a cold wind. She wore a white dress because of course she did. White's in the way snow is white. Beautiful, indifferent, deadly. The partner introduced her as my friend. The word friend wandered around the room looking for a place to sit. My husband turned the color of disappointment. I didn't know she'd be. "Of course," I said, and touched his sleeve like it was fabric and not a map of our ruin. We made our way around the table. Toasts began. The senior partner stood, booming, "To new horizons." The room clinked like a chandelier making up its mind. My husband stood and talked about perseverance, teamwork, long weekends at the office. His ex smiled behind her wine glass, and the top edge of her lip caught the light like a secret. When it was my turn, I raised my glass and looked into his eyes, the brown of coffee that's gone cold. "To follow through," I said, "because it's how you know who a person is." He smiled, confused, grateful. "Hear, hear," he said. 5 minutes later, the lights dimmed one notch. On the far wall, the restaurant's hidden projector blinked awake. White square opening like an eye. It wasn't my doing. The lawyer hadn't arranged it. Fate did. Or the PI. Or maybe it doesn't matter. A slideshow started. It was meant to be the firm's charity gala photos, the senior partner grinning beside a giant check, wives in sequins, vulnerable children pixelated into symbols. But the file had been switched. The first photo was the Cricket River. The second was the cabin with the red shutters. The third was my husband, his back to the camera, his hand around a woman's waist that was not mine. Laughter melted into confusion. Confusion burned into silence. The senior partner made a noise like a fork waking up. My husband stood so fast his chair fell like a witness. "This isn't funny," he said to no one who was laughing. The fourth photo was a receipt with both of their names, the cabin rental, every Friday from the last month. The fifth was a close-up of lipstick on a coffee mug with the caption the PI had added, "River's Edge Grocery loves your weekend orders." The ex-wife's face did something new. It emptied. She didn't look at me. She looked at the senior partner, whose eyes were counting backwards from 10 in a language I don't speak. I didn't speak either. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a sealed envelope. I slid it across to my husband like a tip. He didn't open it. He already knew how paper can hurt. "Congratulations on your promotion," I said. "Consider this my resignation." He mouthed my name which had always sounded nicer when he was tired. "Open it," the senior partner said, and the room remembered it had a boss. He opened it, divorce papers, neatly tabbed, with copies of everything that mattered. The date at the top, today. The line he lingered on, breach of fidelity. The part he didn't see, the lawyer's covering letter to HR sent an hour before dinner with the phrase conflict of interest highlighted like a bruise. The ex-wife finally looked at me. There was no victory in it, only recognition. like two pedestrians pausing on a bridge to watch a storm pass underneath. She and I would not be friends, but we would be honest enemies, and that felt like mercy. I rose. The room made space the way wheat makes space for a scythe. At the door, I paused, turned back, and did what I did not plan. I made a toast. To every woman who learns that quiet is not weakness. To spreadsheets and seatbelts and clean exits. To truth, which doesn't need to shout. I set down my glass. I walked out. I didn't look back. Honeymoon backwards. The door of the restaurant opened to night that smelt like first chances. The sidewalk felt new. My phone buzzed with the message from the lawyer. Delivery confirmed. He's been placed on leave pending investigation. Keys changed. Your new place is ready when you are. She attached a photo of a small apartment 2 neighborhoods over. Tall windows, a kitchen that looked like it remembers laughter. I went there that night. On the kitchen counter, the realtor had left a plant with a note. Low maintenance, unlike men. I laughed again, and it wasn't brittle this time. I didn't cry until I found my own reflection in the dark window. Then I let it happen. It wasn't pretty. It was real. Crying is the tax you pay for becoming a person again. Flashback further. My mother once told me there are 2 kinds of people who will change your life. The ones who throw you into a river and the ones who teach you how to swim. Sometimes she said they're the same person. He tried to call. He left voicemails that were Shakespeare without the talent. We can fix this. It was a mistake. I was confused. He texted, I love you, so many times that the words started to look like a product recalled for safety. I didn't answer. Not out of pettiness, out of clarity. Silence can be a sanctuary. I let his words pile up like snow outside a house with a good furnace. The ex-wife sent me one message 3 days later. We were stupid. I'm sorry. The period was a tiny coffin. I didn't reply to her either. Forgiveness is a river I'll cross when I've learned the currents. For now, I stayed on my side and watched the water make its case to the rocks.
People want the gory details of revenge. They want sugar glass bottles over heads and car keys down storm drains. But the best revenge is administrative. It's the calmness of a woman who has nothing left to lose and a file folder labeled everything. I'd closed joint accounts, documented assets, found the clause about misconduct that turns bonuses into memories. I'd updated my beneficiaries. I told the truth to the handful of friends who know how to hold it. I'd unfollowed the kind of advice that tells you to burn things. Fire cleans nothing. It only hides the smell. What was shocking wasn't the slideshow. It was that I didn't need to scream. The room did it for me. I got a job offered 2 weeks later from someone who'd been in that room, the wife of a partner, the smartest person at the table that night. She ran a foundation that funded girls' debate teams. You're a strategist, she said, and I like the way you make a point. I took the job. I put on a navy dress and the gold earrings my grandmother left me when she decided I would need armor someday. At practice, I watched 14-year-olds argue the ethics of driverless cars with a ferocity that felt like church. I taught them about pace, about quiet as a weapon. I taught them to flash back, to rearrange time, to keep their opponent off balance. In the evenings, I went home to my plant and a book with sentences that don't lie. I slept like furniture. One Saturday, months later, I drove north alone. Traffic was kind, the river was still crooked. The red shutter cabin sat with its porch swing moving, like always, wind or no wind. I parked in the gravel lot and got out with my hands in my pockets so the day couldn't see them shake. I didn't go to the door. I stood under the pine smell and listened to my heartbeat count to 60 without flinching. Then I turned and walked toward the river. The water didn't apologize for being itself. It ran. It kept going. It didn't look back. There's a version of this story where I set his clothes on fire or sabotage his car or leave a scathing note on the ex-wife's mirror in lipstick she can't scrub out. That version gets clicks.
That version feels cinematic, but it forgets the point. The point is that I found my hands again. I found my voice. I found a lawyer who keeps gowns and garment bags for court days and victory nights. I found that love is not a prize for endurance. I found that if your husband sleeps with his ex every weekend, you don't have to become a villain to stop being a victim. You can become a witness, and then a judge, and then, if you choose, the architect of a life without courtrooms. He lost his promotion. I didn't take a childish victory lap. I took my half of the house, the car with the good brakes, and the right to my last name spoken without shame. He sent one final text that almost landed. I miss us. I stared at it. I thought, us didn't exist. I miss me. I blocked his number, not angrily, simply, like closing a window before a storm that is no longer your problem. If you're listening to this because your life tastes like metal right now, because you smelled something at 2 a.m. that changed how you breathe, here's what I know. Your quiet is powerful. Keep records. Tell one person who will show up for you in court or in a kitchen at 3 a.m. Wear the dress that feels like a decision. Walk away while you still look like yourself. And if you need permission, take mine. Leave the porch swing empty. Let the river do what it's always done. Epilogue, because we like tidy shelves. A year later, I'm at a debate finals. My favorite student is at the podium, palm steady, voice like a lighthouse. She opens with a hook that slices the room awake. She pauses, lets the silence sit in its chair. Then she says, "Follow through is how you know who someone is." And she smiles at me because she knows exactly what she's doing. After we win, the girls drag me to the ice cream place that smells like childhood and dish soap. We sit in the booth with the wobbly table and laugh with our whole shoulders. My phone buzzes with a new text from a number I don't recognize. It's the ex-wife. I left too. Started over. Thank you for not making me your hobby. I look at the girls with their trophies and their futures and type back 2 words. Be well. I put my phone face down. I lift my spoon. The ice cream is lavender and honey and something else I can't name yet. Maybe hope. When I walk home that night, the city is noisy in the good way, like a party you were invited to on purpose. At my apartment door, I stop, look down at my keys, and smile at the one engraved with a tiny river. The locksmith did that without telling me. I think people who work with doors understand more than they say. Inside, I water the plant, I open the window. The night comes in uncomplicated. I climb into a bed that only knows one body. The sheets smell like detergent and sleep and the feeling of getting to tomorrow without asking permission.